Good morning. I am here with my friend Phong Cao from Remax Advantage Plus. Phong has been in the real estate market now for 18 years. Good morning, Phong.
Good morning,
Thanks for
Aaron.
joining me to talk about this today.
You bet.
Tell me a little bit about your niche or the clients that you serve.
My niche, uh, the client I serve is mostly the Asian community, Vietnamese specifically, and a lot of people from other countries. So, yeah, I have a mix clients from all over the world.
That's really cool. I find like real estate is difficult enough for people to understand when English is their first primary language and they're in an English speaking country. But if it's their secondary language, it makes your help all that much more valuable because you're able to present that information to them in a way that makes sense to them.
Yes.
We got together today to talk about something that's been coming up a lot lately, I think, for both of us. And we talked about this and said we should do a video about this. Um, is this a good time of the year to buy a house? I have a lot of people asking me that. Um, what would you say about if this is a good time to buy a house?
I say that during the fall and winter months is the best time to buy a home. And I
And
can go over a little bit to like specifically, there are 6 reasons why now is the best time to buy a home.
and what are they?
Okay, I can list them here. Number one, there's less competition.
And what do you mean by less competition?
You remember back in 2020, 2021, when rates were really low and when a listing came on the market and there's a ton of people, wanted to buy it and submit offer. It was crazy. It was 20 offers on a house and you would have to bid 20, 30,000 over list to get the house. It's not like that anymore. That's what I mean by less competition.
It's funny you say that. I lend all over the country. I had some clients out in Colorado that paid $982,000 for a house that was listed at $800,000 during that time. And, on the mortgage side, we would see this with our clients going out and making offers on homes, and they would be one of 30, 40, 50 offers. And sometimes they would feel so rushed that they had to make a decision before they'd hardly set foot in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Back then, um, you can, go crazy with the price. Yeah. It
Mhm.
was unreal.
Yeah. Well, and so, definitely less competition is a great thing for buyers because the less competition there is, then you're not having to bid the house up on price. But what's another reason that now's a good time to buy a house?
Well, right now, the listings that are on the market, the sellers are more motivated. They want to sell that home. If it doesn't sell within that first week, they're gonna lower the price to get it sold.
Mhm.
So
And
there's more motivated sellers.
and would you say that that's a little bit of a hangover from the market that we've had for the last couple of years where things were flying off the shelf so quickly that sellers have become accustomed to believing that their home should sell the first day it's on the market?
Yeah, I think that's you're basically right. This is more normal. Back a couple of years ago, it was going so fast that buyer didn't have time to go out there, schedule a showing, making time to go out there, and you have to make this quick decision because it was going so fast
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yep. Yeah. And would you say that another component related to that then? I mean, at least I'm seeing this on my side, so you tell me what you think about it. I think it's giving my home buyers more time to think about whether that house is a good fit for them or not once they go out and see it.
Yes. Now you actually have more time to think about it, whereas before you have to make a quick decision. You don't know that this is the right house for you. So you just have to kind of wing it and hope for the best. Now you have time, you can do inspection, you can back out, do inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before you had to waive it. So that was another thing. So um you can take your time and think more clearly
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I think that leads to a much more positive outcome on the buyer side because they're not second guessing the choices that they made in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, and I see less cancellation rates
Yeah.
that way
Yeah.
too. So, they're not having, what do you call that?
Buyer's remorse.
Buyer remorse.
Yeah. Yes, because they know more about the
They
house. They
know.
can do an
Yeah, no,
inspection.
they know. They read the sales disclosure. They have
Mhm.
time to go through it really thoroughly. So
Well, and it's a big purchase. So, it's not like you're buying a $5 item at Target, and if you made a bad choice, it hasn't hurt your budget or your life too much. It's uprooting your family. It's spending a lot of money, and so it's important to get it right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so true.
What else are you seeing? I mean, what's another reason why somebody would
Um,
want to consider buying now instead of waiting?
well, the third thing is, quick transactions is my another reason why it's a good time to buy. Um, what I mean by that, a lot of these homes, they are vacant. Um, the seller want quick closing, so you can have that. Um, they're not like where you have to wait a couple months for the seller to move and have them, contingent on the seller buy another home, then you can buy the house. So it's much faster.
And are you noticing, to you, what's the reason that a lot of these homes are vacant? Are these people who just have bought their next house, moved, and then waited to put their house on the market? Are they foreclosures? Or what's the situation with why they might be vacant?
Basically, I think that the seller just moved on. They found another house, um, probably relocated to another state already, and they just have to move everything out and go their new place, start new life somewhere else. So that's why it's vacant. But vacant homes, um, if it's left like that, it doesn't sell as fast versus a home that's already staged.
Mhm. Yeah,
And stage
it's an
houses,
interesting perception,
yeah,
isn't it?
right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting on my side, on the mortgage side, we see a lot of clients who don't want to buy their next house. They don't want to sell their house until they find the right next house. And so whenever possible, we're figuring out, okay, is there a way for them to be able to qualify to buy the new house without having to first sell the old house so that then they can move, they can get settled in the new place, and then they can do the things they want to do to get the house ready to sell instead of trying to do that amidst the chaos of life, or if they've got children or pets that they want to get out of the house. So that makes a lot of sense to me that a lot of these homes are vacant because many of these people have purchased something before they've actually put that house on the market.
Yeah, it just is easier, for showing logistics. Maybe they have a lot of kids, pets. They don't want to keep, leaving the home. So the buyer can come in and look at the homes and talk comfortably. So a lot of that goes into it. So they rather have it, everything moved and ready.
I
So
have
somebody else can see the house.
I have a funny story about that personally. This is going to make you laugh. So, do you know what a Moluccan cockatoo is?
What's that?
It's a parrot. It's
The parrot?
a large parrot. They're kind of pinkish, salmon colored in hue. From if you it was standing here on my desk, it'd be about a foot and a half tall or so. Um,
Yeah.
so I once had a Moluccan cockatoo, and they're very loud. If they decide they want to start screaming, they can break glass. And
Oh,
we listed our house for sale, but we need to sell the house before we bought the next house. So every time we would have a showing, we would have to take the bird and put him in the car, and we would have to drive around with the parrot in the car so they wasn't screaming at people coming to look at our house. I would have much preferred the option of buying a new house without selling my house at that time, but at that point in my life, it wasn't an option. So I can see why people would
okay.
want to do that.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me something else about why you might want to consider moving now instead of waiting. I mean, you hear so many people say, "Oh, I want to wait until the spring," because of course here in Minnesota, at least where we are, um, it gets cold, and a lot of people don't like to move when it's cold. But there's a lot of advantages to doing it.
Yeah. Especially, during the colder months. My next reason is there's less expensive moving expense, less expensive moving price.
Mhm.
Um, now that the movers and the trucks are slowing down, you can rent that truck, in short notice, and the movers don't charge you as much because they're slower now.
Mhm.
They want that business.
Yeah, you're not fighting a
You're
bunch
not
of other
fighting
bids. Just
this.
like you aren't competing against 50 people to buy the same house, you aren't also competing against 50 people to rent that same truck or use that same moving company on the same day.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
what else would you consider a reason? Because I think you said you had six, right? And we've done
Six,
four.
yeah, we did four. And here's the fifth one, year-end tax breaks.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Year-end tax breaks. So, um, you know, when you buy or sell a home, there are costs um, in buying or selling, right? You got title fees, you got mortgage fees, you got tax fees.
I mean,
Some of
is it a
those could
mortgage
be,
registration tax or a deed
yeah,
tax? Yeah.
all those fees, a closing cost. You can take that um, settlement statement when at the closing and give it to your CPA, and then you can write up some of those fees, some of
Mhm.
those costs. Those could be deductible.
Yep, to reduce your tax burden.
You have to reduce your tax. So if you
Mhm.
need to buy a home, there's a lot of people are doing it for that reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to buy a home anyway,
You
and
need
you
to,
need to wait some of that into this year, it's just another advantage to doing it this year instead of waiting.
yeah.
Yeah. And what about your sixth one?
The sixth one, there's I put down less pressure to buy.
That's
Less
probably,
pressure.
somewhat similar to what we talked about earlier, right? Like having a little bit more
Right.
time to think and consider your options.
Yeah. It's very similar to the first one. Is less competition now. There's less pressure to buy because you have more time to think about it. You review the sales disclosure. You did your inspection. You review all your financials, and you notice the right house. You brought in your mom and dad to your parents come look at the house a second time.
Yeah.
So and now it all comes together. There's no pressure. You you know you can go for it. You get the green
Well,
light.
and I think one of the nice things for home buyers too is if they're moving to an area that they're not familiar with, you can tell me, but I think we see a lot of home buyers going out and looking at homes at night or on the weekends. And now that
Mhm.
we're in past daylight savings time, a lot of those showings are in the dark, right? And they might see what the house looks like in the dark, but maybe they want to go drive around the neighborhood during the daylight hours too, and just get a good feel for where they're going to move before they actually
Yeah,
put an offer in. And it gives them an opportunity to do that too.
yeah. I had to show some homes in the dark. I don't like it.
Mhm.
I use my cell phone flashlight. It doesn't show the whole picture. Outside it's kind of dark. But I always recommend coming back during the day, going around outside. Look, you might miss something. Maybe the siding is all you know bad. You never know. And the roof, you don't see anything at
Right,
night.
right,
You can
eh,
visually see it during the day.
right. And if we were talking about a year and a half ago, people would hardly set foot in a house, have to make an offer. It might be night. They might not have seen the backyard or the roof or so many other things that if they would have seen the house in the daylight, they might have decided that they didn't want to buy that house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. During the day is much better.
Well, and I think it's important, I didn't mention when we started, but today is November 10th, the 2023, the observation of Veterans Day. So happy Veterans Day, and thank you to everybody who served. But it's important to talk about the time that we're in too, right? Today is different than where things were a year and a half or 2 years ago. And it's different than where we're going to be when we hit spring as well. We're not going to be having this same conversation in spring, but this is really relevant for people who are thinking, should I buy a house? Should I wait for interest rates to come down before I buy a house, or should I buy a house now? And time and again, you'll see that you can't undo what you pay for the house. And if you
Right.
have to compete against a lot of people to buy a house, you're going to pay a lot more for the house. And I can't undo that, but I can refinance a loan to get a better rate after we buy the house. And so the rate's a lot less relevant than the actual price you pay for the house and your overall long-term wealth.
The old saying, I mentioned to you before, you marry the house, you date the rate.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And the market is kind of like teeter-totter, right? When rates are high, prices come down, and then when rates come down, price goes up. It
Right.
just keeps going like this all the time.
Right.
So it's kind of like a balancing, you know, do you want the lower price or do you want a lower interest rate? So perhaps this right now, you're kind of like, okay, I want a lower price, obviously, but you know, you have to pay a little bit higher rate, but you can refinance. It's not
Right.
permanent.
Right. Exactly. It's the only part of that process really that isn't permanent. And
You can't pick
that's
up a house and move it to another location.
exactly. Yeah. And you can't take a time machine back 2 years ago and pay what you would have paid for it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's great. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and being willing to sit down and talk with me about this today. Tell me, if people want to reach out to you, have questions, how do they reach you?
Well, I appreciate that, Aaron, for taking the time to we talk like this. This is great. Yes, if you want to reach out to me, you can call me at 952-994-6988. That's my direct cell phone. Or you can email me at fong@mnrealestateteam.com.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you so very much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Aaron.